Welcome back to part 2 of Wicklow County Matters. We're now going to talk to Rod Coyne about his 1916 commemorative collection. This is my friend Barney, he's the gallery manager.
So Paul, this is the calendar I was telling you about, and this is actually what started the whole exhibition for me. I was conscious of the centenary coming up years ago, and I'd said I must do something. It was 2014 before I really got started, I have to admit. There's always stuff gets in the way. Of
course.
So we started by creating 12 portraits based on just some key figures. It's impossible to get everybody in there.
O'Reilly.
Well, that's Roger Casement there, and we have Thomas Clark here. And with the calendar that I've created, we deliberately made a point of going for big prints on a very high quality. So it didn't matter if the month had passed. People were getting more than a calendar. They're getting a whole collection of prints. So these can be just as easily framed and hung on the wall as a collection in their own right. There's the O'Reilly, and there's Kathleen Clark, as I was telling you about her. I thought she was very interesting as a widow of the Rising, and one of the people who had to stay at home, and not everybody could head out. Padraig Pearse, I'm very, very interested to hear about his lazy eye there, and that was the reason why he'd be looking away in all of those. I hadn't realised that. But the calendar itself was so successful that the people in Tinahely in the Art Centre there, the courthouse, they asked me if I wouldn't hang the portraits as part of their specific centenary celebrations. So I agreed to that quite readily. I was delighted to do that. We're going to have the show coming up on the 13th of March. We're opening there, and it'll run for a month. But the originals, I wanted to hold on to those to see if I can use those for a travelling show. So I'm looking to the States to see if we can keep that going. And in the meantime, what I've done is a collection of prints based on those originals. Mm-hmm. So we will have all those prints there. Each original painting will be there, and each print will be hanging there. And the prints, they're also available. We have them on our website.
Rod, you've gone from mountainscapes and landscapes to now the 1916 portrait collection. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it probably seems like a real something completely out of left field compared to my usual work, but that's only looking at my usual work, say in the last 10 or 12 years. Actually, if I go right back, I was telling you about my time I'd spent in Germany, and my first paintings that I did there were actually very politically motivated, and it was looking at the Troubles, and it was about the time just before the ceasefire came through, and I was just re-examining my own history. So that political element was there, and that also meant I was taking on figures and doing figurative work. It is the centenary. It's certainly a very current topic, but it also gives me an excuse to paint figures and heads again. I'll never be a portrait artist. There's so many Irish artists that are so much better at portraiture than I will ever be, but I really enjoy it. I get great satisfaction of it, and I think it's just the fact that, like most people, I'm fascinated by the human condition, and this was a chance to sort of explore the human condition.
What I noticed about your 1916 collection was that you have a historical interest, because you focused on some of the figures that have been forgotten about. One in particular was Nurse O'Farrell, who has actually been, pardon the pun, airbrushed out of Irish history. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think that's really important, and it's been also a great feature of putting together this 1916 portrait collection for myself. It's been a proper learning process. I came at it from a view originally as, say, a Leaving Cert student from 1985, and took everything at face value as it was handed down to us then. Now we see the world with very different eyes, and there's gender quotas out there, and it was important for me to look more at the female aspect that was missing from the Rising itself, and that brought me straight to Elizabeth O'Farrell. And when I found out that she had been literally airbrushed out of history for reasons yet to be discovered, I thought it would be an opportunity for me to celebrate that woman, to celebrate the women in general who were part of the 1916 Rising, and if at all possible to do my little part to airbrush her back in.
Because what's very strange about the situation of O'Farrell, who's actually from Wicklow here as well, I believe she's from Bray, is that there was other famous women like Countess Markievicz and Maud Gonne, and what they were fighting for as well was equality for women too, and that was part of the 1916 idea too, that a new Ireland would have more equality in it.
Absolutely, sure. If you look at the proclamation, it was men and women of Ireland was was the first sentiment that was in there, and at the time the women didn't have a vote, so it was a chance for an absolute new beginning, and that was crucial. You get the feeling that was lost in a large part of the century that followed, but I think we're getting back there again now, and that's why, as I said, it was a learning curve for me. I probably started out with the very last millennium view of the world, and my view of 1916 was very male dominated, and what I've tried to do with this collection is to reinstate that female aspect that was crucial for the whole rising itself.
Even with the portraits here behind us, you've used in dominance orange, blue and black. Can you tell us why you've kind of worked with those colours, as all the portraits have a similar theme running through them?
So the photographs that I had to work from were so disparate, I wanted to give them a common thread, so I said I'll stay with a really tight palette. So I've worked with a raw sienna and a Prussian blue, and I've just stayed within the narrow confines of those, and that thread runs through all of the 16 portrait pictures that will be in the exhibition in Tinnahealy.
Speaking of jaded memories of the same pictures, as an artist, would you often be very curious to what Pádraig Pearse actually looks like face on? Because he himself had this kind of embarrassment of a lazy eye, where he always turned of a side profile picture. And would you ever be eager to find out what the man actually looked like, straight on?
Likeness, but this time I made a conscious decision of not using any technical devices, but literally using my onboard Photoshop to translate the photograph I was looking at in front of me through me onto the canvas, and that way I was going to have a conversation with the person that I was painting, and I hoped that way to get a little feeling of the type of person they were, and a bit more than to get between the lines of what's just written in the history books. So I'm very interested in getting the 1916 portrait collection seen as far as possible. So I'd like to actually, I see it as a ready-to-go travelling exhibition. So it'd be great to see it in amongst the communities you have there, in the cities around Australia and in America, everywhere you have a big Irish community.
And what groups would you look at targeting for this collection, or maybe a possible event?
Well, I think it's universal in an Irish sense, as in 1916 centenary. It's all about the birth of the nation. So it should appeal, as far as I'm concerned, to people or to groups who are interested culturally and historically, and and that takes in the whole thing. The same way you'll have a Ceoltas here, you'll have Ceoltas in other cities, and also on top of that, the groups that have an interest in art per se. So people who are interested in painting maybe, or people who are interested in portraiture, that they would like to have a look at that. And I think that'll be a perfect travelling show for them, ready to go.
We wish you the best of luck here in the Evoca Gallery. We learned a lot here today about art and history. Best of luck in the exhibition. Guys, thanks very much for tuning in to Wicklow County Matters. See you the same time, same place next week.